live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, you know what we do. Every Wednesday evening, we talk movies, providing we can keep going now if movies continue to come out. That's really the concern right now with all of Hollywood for the most part, except the billionaires being on strike. We were just talking about that in the green room, how now it's getting to the point where there's trailers being shown in front of movies, and these trailers, like, say, coming in October or coming in August, and they're not coming out anymore. So it's a very weird, precarious time, especially watching these trailers. It's a coin flip whether or not you're actually going to see them. But I can verify that we did see the movie we are talking about today. It is part 2 of our Barbenheimer show today. We are reviewing Oppenheimer. We tackled Barbie last week, 2 of the most anticipated, if not the most anticipated movies of the year. We are going to be tackling Oppenheimer today. It is really, with the exception of our intro here in a couple of minutes, it is an all Oppenheimer show today. I figured since Barbie took us almost to 8:30 alone, or to 7:30, excuse me, to 7:30 alone, we might as well give Oppenheimer the 3-hour-long biopic, the whole runway of the show, and not have to truly worry about a second topic, really, because there has been no movement on the writers or actors strike at the moment. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed something gets done and the writers don't get screwed. That's Joe Viso, of course, my right-hand man, the reason this show happens on a week-to-week basis. And, of course, Dominic Guanzon, who is unseen, but he is certainly heard. How's it going, Dom? All right.
I have become Based, the destroyer of cringe.
That could double as a sick Clockwork Orange costume.
It looks extra stupid with the headphones.
Yeah.
But this feels great. I don't know why we stopped smoking as a society. It's like
completely
this
agree.
feels amazing. I love holding this. I might just have this.
Some people at work make fun of me because I used to smoke cigarettes. Some people at work make fun of me because sometimes I hold pens like this. I hold pens like this. I'm like, it
feels great though.
It's something.
It feels great. Pregnant
you
women
look good.
should smoke more. It take the edge off. No, I am. This is my. It looks really dumb with the headphones, but I am this costume that I wanted to wear to Barbie the other week. But events aside, I am Wokenheimer. Protect trans kids. ACAB. The first Pride was a riot. All these are straight facts. Pride was built on the bricks thrown by drag queens and trans women. I'm not laughing at these. These are all accurate. But if I had the suit,
you could take the, you know what you could take? I just thought about it. You could take the ACAB button and make it ABAC. Atom bombs are catastrophic.
That's really good. That's really good.
He lost the fedora. It was so good.
It blew the fedora away.
Yeah, just like Einstein's hat, dude.
Thank you.
You didn't have to buy any of that, did you? You just had that.
Just
in your
the
closet,
cigarettes.
I
Just the
you.
fake paper cigarettes.
I knew you had that in your closet. I knew I knew you were the only person under 30 with suspenders.
Actually, no. I take it back. I forgot. These suspenders, I did get at Goodwill for like $5.
Oh, okay.
And then all these buttons are from Chelsea.
Okay.
So yeah, but this was a extremely cheap costume.
What are those? What do those suspenders look like to me? They look like that candy. That, like, what are they, like the sour ropes or like the airhead ropes? The ropes, you know what I mean? Like the candy ropes.
I do know what you're talking about.
Oh my god!
Like the rainbow colored. What are they? Sour warheads, airheads, whatever they are. That's what they look like. Those rainbow suspenders. I'm not mocking them. It's an observation.
Thank you. But yeah, this is. I've long thought about this Wokenheimer cosplay and how I was gonna do it. But it's
looks good.
It's time. I think I was in Chicago with Chelsea and Lizzie when they saw the genesis of me putting things together. Like Wokenheimer. I just said it out loud and I just started like laughing for the next 5 minutes.
He was literally like Oppenheimer putting the atoms together, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you know the scenes where it cuts away and it goes to like all the atoms in his mind like coming together and stuff. That was basically it, but with this gag.
You look good, man. I knew something had to be coming when I didn't see you on camera for
for like a full
10
minutes. I was just a blank screen. I'm like, he's doing some bullshit.
I knew it. I think I'm really probably the only person that hasn't dressed up on the show yet. Everybody's dressed up. You guys have all dressed up and everything. I don't think I have yet.
I want to run to my closet real quick because I see my suit I wore today for work and the dress shirt is right next to it. I just want to throw it on real quick just to look the part.
I did think about when I went to go see Barbie 2 Thursdays ago. I did think about taking a low angle selfie of me in my gray shirt and gray sweats, and I'd be like Barbie outfit on point. I thought about doing that for a fraction of a second.
No, but you're the Barbie when she's depressed for that brief moment.
It is good to see you, gentlemen, and it's great to be on Sleepless with Steve tonight. Dom's costume really sending us over here and really propelling us into a really good discussion about Oppenheimer coming up in a few short minutes. But I guess first things first, I really didn't ask the panel over here. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. I want to get to the show as quick as possible because I'm swamped with homework. Next week's the last week for this summer course, and then finally I get a week off, which hasn't happened ever since I started school again. Not school again, but ever since school started back up, I should say, in January. So it'll be the first break I've had since like January 17th or something. Martin Luther King week basically is when class usually starts for us at my university.
Damn, so I mean, like, everybody's looking around like, man, how's it already August? You're really like, thank God it's August.
Yeah, fucking, you ain't kidding.
Like, somehow, some way, it's like the third act of summer here. How about you, D? How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm recovering from a very busy and stressful couple of weeks, and this August isn't going to get any lighter. But it is what it is. And I got a lot of support systems that are coming out of the woodwork. And honestly, this show every week is a support system. Just being able to talk the fine art of cinema with you gentlemen. It really does make my week. I know you guys were like, hey, if you don't need to come on tonight, if you need to take a break, just don't bother. And I'm like, no, if anything, it's the opposite. I need this. So it's a good time.
I know that feeling. Like I said, I tell you off air all the time, man, and I tell you on air, man. Like I said, phone line's always open for you, brother.
Hell yeah.
We'll get to it. Almost neglected to put this on the scroll. How could I not? Because it's really been probably the top entertainment story this week. I definitely want to say a few words about Paul Reubens, who passed away on Monday. Technically Sunday, I think. Monday's when the news broke. 70 years old, and it was one of those instances where it's like, wow, he's 70. And then it was also like, man, he was only 70. Paul Reubens, though, obviously most famous for Pee Wee Herman. A character that, I'll be quite honest, I really did not watch anything Pee Wee Herman related until college. Until like early college. And the reason I didn't, and it's weird because a lot of the YouTubers I grew up watching loved Pee Wee, talked about him a lot. Sean C. Phillips, one of my favorite YouTubers of all time. That's Pee Wee's Big Adventure is one of his, if not his favorite movie. Yeah. And he talked about it a ton, and I grew up watching it. But there was something that turned me off about Pee Wee as a kid, or something like that. I was like, I am gonna loathe this character and everything about him. And then it wasn't until like I got older in high school and then in college, I had friends that liked Paul Reubens and Pee Wee Herman. So then I finally said, I'm going to watch Pee Wee's Big Adventure. And I friggin' loved it. It's a great film. I watched I think the whole first season of Pee Wee's Playhouse too. And I'm just like, this character should not be this funny. Like, it almost is comic anarchy in a way. And it's tough to explain why it works so well. What were you gonna say?
I said I always thought of him as a live action Looney Tunes character just come to life. Honestly, the way he acts.
Yes, that's a really good way to put it. And I even still have a hard time of putting my finger on why he was so effective. But he was also the character, because a lot of people forget that Pee Wee Herman was designed as more of like an adult stage play thing in the early
Yeah.
80s, and it was designed for adults, and it wasn't like dirty, but it was more adult centered. And then it wasn't until like they linked up with Rubens linked up with Tim Burton in the early 80s, and then they came up with Big Adventure, and it just appealed to kids. Then it became that CBS show, Pee Wee's Playhouse. We got Big Top Pee Wee with Chris Christopherson in the 90s, I think it was, and then or in the late 80s, I believe. And then most recently was Pee Wee's Big Holiday, the Netflix original movie in 2016. Other than that, though, Rubens was in a bunch of stuff. He's I think probably outside of Pee Wee, his most famous role is the drug dealer in Blow, probably with Johnny Depp, which was a really cool role for him. He's been on a ton of shows. He's always been sort of this eccentric personality, this really, like definitely the thing I think was going to be missed the most about Rubens, and then I'll pass it off to you guys. And what actually made me stop and be kind of sad for a few minutes at work yesterday when I heard the news was the fact that, like, I really feel like in the 80s, and even maybe a little bit to a lesser degree our generation, but I really think in the 80s when Pee-wee's Big Adventure came out, I think that gave a lot of, like, weird, eccentric, eclectic, different kids in the 80s that maybe liked like comic books or movies or shows or random things on pop culture. I think he gave them a voice, and I think he showed them in like it almost sort of like a, out of arm's reach way that, like, it's fun to be different. It's fun to be loud. It's fun to be colorful. It's fun to be yourself. And that's what I respect the hell out of him for. I think that he was probably an odd kid or at least viewed as an odd kid. And then he grew to own that, and that's where the Pee Wee Herman character came from. I'm kind of speculating. I don't know Rubens, obviously. I don't know his life story, but that's always how it struck me. And I remember watching Pee Wee's Big Adventure in like early high school and thinking, like, you jagoff, you should have watched this like 10 years ago. Like, this really probably might have shaped your personality a bit more had you seen it at a younger age and you weren't just like put off by the whole thing based on like a couple clips. But yeah, it was sad to hear Paul Rubens died, and I guess he was sick for about 6 years and he wasn't public with it. It was kind of a Chadwick Boseman situation. Granted, Boseman was far younger, but like, yeah, Rubens was sick for the last 6 years, never revealed it, and he dies just about a month short from his 71st birthday. Pass it off to you, Joe. Your thoughts on Paul Rubens, your relationship with Pee Wee?
I saw Pee Wee's Big Adventure when I was like 10 years old. My dad showed it to me. And yeah, no, I loved it as a kid, and I still love it today. It is a fun movie to put on. The Big Ma or Big Rig Ma scene is always like one of my favorite scenes in any kid's film, where it's just like, it just becomes Large Marge. There we go. I was like trying to remember the name. It's always like one of those scenes. It's like, yeah, it's completely dark just out of nowhere, and then it goes back to just being a kid's film. It's like it's an iconic scene for me. I did enjoy the 2013. I never saw Big Top, but I did enjoy the 2013 Netflix movie. I thought that was fun. I love Joe Manganiello's like cameo throughout the whole thing, where he just wants to hang out with Pee Wee, but like he's too busy like being an actor and stuff that he can't hang out with him. Other than that, though, I mean, I didn't really keep up too much with Paul Rubens. Like there is the whole like this guy had a porn collection, and he used to go to garage sales and buy all this stuff, and like there's a whole can of worms there. I'm not gonna get into it. The man's dead at this point. It's like, all right, look, I'm just gonna honor him by saying, like, I loved Pee Wee growing up. I still love watching Pee Wee today and everything. And like, I hope to the Paul Rubens family, any of those who are affected by this that are close to him, I wish them nothing but the best, and like my condolences and whatnot. Yeah.
Real quick, Tom, before you go, I will say that the other story that he's most famous for is probably the indecent exposure incident in 1991
There's that.
in the adult movie theater. My favorite thing about that is that, like, so he obviously like went away he obviously like went away from the public eye for a little while when that whole thing was happening. The guy would have probably been ruined, especially with the whole porn collection thing. The guy would have probably been ruined if it happened today.
Yeah.
But you know, it was funny. And I go back and watch this clip. Highly recommend you do, because this was about like, I don't know, probably about 8 months after the thing. So it was a long time, you know what I mean, in the early 90s. But after that whole thing happened, he appeared at the 1991 MTV Music Video Awards, or Video Music Awards rather. He appeared there, and he went on stage dressed as Pee-wee to a standing ovation. And the first thing he said, he got up to the mic and he goes in his Pee-wee voice, "Heard any good jokes lately?" so I'm like, it's a great clip if you look it up, man, because he I mean, that dude's funny. That he knew how to command a crowd.
He did.
I'll leave it to
I will give him that as well. Yeah.
Double salute. What you say about Rubens, Dom?
I'll say that I'll even just straight up say that the indecent exposure thing is actually kind of messed up from like the charge itself, because it was in an adult theater.
Yeah.
Like that's like actually the one place where you can kind of do that. Like that's consensual. Like everyone is doing that in that theater, or at least half of that theater.
It's more
is doing
frowned
that.
upon. It's like almost not
It's
allowed.
okay,
it's like
sure.
Frowned upon.
But like,
go on.
That
Dom.
one.
I'll leave it down. Go on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The collection of that's like the collection of images. That's actually more gray area. But the theater thing, which is the thing I think number one he's most known for. He was like the butt of the joke. That was like a joke in grade school that we would just circulate around. Like every time Pee Wee Herman would come up, we would just be like, "Oh yeah, he's the dude that jacked off in a theater." But like, it was an adult theater. Let me be clear about that. It was an adult theater where people are constantly doing that.
Yeah.
All right.
You go in there with a
that's
certain light,
consensual
and
there.
you will see a lot of stuff you don't want to see.
Yeah, exactly. But regardless, I think all three of us are on the same page, which is that we are discovering kind of the crazy hidden genius of such a character. This is a guy who this is an artist, I should say. This is an artist that created something and managed to build a small, like, media empire is too strong because he didn't have like the levers of power, but he built like a world, for himself.
Yeah.
That he was able to entertain people with for literal decades. And that is something most creatives dream of, let alone are able to execute properly. And what happens with his legacy from now on, at the very least, I have not seen it, but he does have a third movie in his trilogy of movies, Pee-wee's Vacation, or
Big Holiday.
Pee-wee's Big Holiday, which is on Netflix back in 2016.
Yeah.
So which
last film credit too.
Yeah, that means he had to have had the cancer diagnosis soon after that movie premiered, at least. So it's a story that you can't be too necessarily sad about, because the dude had his successes, and even after the things that brought him down, he was actually able to ride through that pretty decently well, and he seems to have a cool small resurgence, particularly after his death now. So we'll see where it goes, and we'll see what other hidden gems. I will say I did manage to catch the first 15 to 20 minutes of his HBO stage play, and it is interesting. There is some adult innuendo there, and I think that I should say I'm not that much of a Pee Wee Herman fan, haven't had much of a chance to indulge in his work, but what I did see in that theater performance, like, you know what, this has a cool edge to it that probably went away with when he was solely kid focused. But I would have really liked to have seen more of that, which I can because I need to watch the rest of it. But I am curious to see how much of that managed to make it into the proper series, which Pee-wee fans might know more of. But yeah, dude, cool story.
A lot of people forget too, one of his first appearances as Pee Wee Herman was in Cheech and Chong's next movie.
He was like in a whole bunch of, like, if you look at his filmography, right, it's a whole bunch of cameos.
Yeah.
He's in Blues Brothers as a waiter.
He's in his first credits, Prey TV. That's actually a very underrated, like, spoof and send up of like televangelist culture. It's really good.
That
he has a good role in it. He has a good role in it. Prey TV, yeah.
he was in Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas as Fife, which I thought that VHS was like a fever dream, but no, do remember that now. And yes, I got it confused because for the longest time I'm like, I'm watching Beauty and the Beast. When does the other the organ show up? Oh wait, that's in the Christmas themed episode. Whatever. Either way, this guy was a working actor pretty much the whole time.
It was the raccoon voice in Dr. Dolittle with Eddie Murphy.
Yes, yeah, that's just the most random. He was in Nightmare Before Christmas as one of the henchmen.
He's in Michael Jackson's Moonwalker as Pee Wee Herman.
What?
That's right, he is.
You're right.
That's I remember that. He is in Moonwalker.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he was in the
Reno
911 movie.
Yeah.
A lot of just random stuff. Good for him, though. Like,
yeah, good for him.
Good for him. The last thing I'll say, or the last thing I'll add, he released he didn't release it. It was after his death. A statement that was written by him was released by his camp, and it says, and I quote, "Please accept my apology for not going public with what I've been facing for the last 6 years. I have always felt a huge amount of love and respect from my friends, fans, and supporters. I have loved you all so much and enjoyed making art for you."
Yeah, I read that this morning. I actually was like, you know what, man? I'm like, that was nice. That was a good, final send-off to his whole legacy, I think.
It hasn't been revealed what kind of cancer he was suffering from, but either way, Paul Rubin's dead at 70. Rest in peace. Wanted to devote a few minutes to the show to talk about that, and we will segue very smoothly now into Oppenheimer.
Are we doing it? We're doing the thing?
Yes, indeed.
All right, keep going.
Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer is the movie of choice as Dom is bracing himself right here. Oh, this is biblical. This is beautiful. Oh man, you came to play today, man, didn't you?
Oh yeah. This is all the energy that I would have had on the Barbie premiere.
Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer in theaters now. There's a million different ways we can take this. This is one of the longest reviews I've written this year too. Lot to say about this movie. Some of it's a little bit kind of hard to summarize in ways because this movie is difficult to summarize in one of the best sense though. In one of the best sense, this is one of the most, I think, expansive and well done biopics I've seen in many years. I also think that this is, even for Nolan, I think even for somebody as accomplished as Nolan, I think this is a extremely well-made movie.
Yeah.
One of my personal favorites from him, probably a top 3 Nolan movie. And in my opinion, I know I'm not going to make any friends saying this. In my opinion, it's sort of kind of a bounce back in a way. Dunkirk, I've always felt was good, not great. I didn't like Tenet at all. And this really feels like kind of like a reestablishing of genius in a way for Nolan. The first point I'll make, and then I'll really want to turn it over to Dom over here. He came dressed up for a reason. But the first thing I'll note is I kind of felt watching this thing the same way I did watching Steven Spielberg's immensely underrated and underseen West Side Story. I feel like I don't go like a month without mentioning that movie to somebody. But Spielberg's West Side Story, when I watched that, and I remember when we reviewed it, I said, watching that movie, like you almost could believe, you almost could, if you didn't know any better, you could have believed that Spielberg had been making musicals his entire life. It just felt so natural. West Side Story felt so authentic. It felt like, if you didn't know any better, you'd think the guy making this movie has probably made 5 or 6 musicals in his life. He's like the Norman Jewison of the modern day. But that was not the case. West Side Story was Spielberg's first musical. In conjunction, Nolan's Oppenheimer is the first time the director has ever made a biographical movie, or a biopic as it's known. And I think it's extremely fitting that Nolan's first foray into the biographical film sphere is a movie about a self-destructive man obsessed with like a seemingly impossible math problem, and his lasting impact on the world is a weapon capable of destroying it. If that doesn't sound like Nolan right there, David Ehrlich said something good, the film critic for IndieWire. David Ehrlich said, if J. Robert Oppenheimer didn't exist, it would be necessary for Christopher Nolan to invent him. and it feels like that, man. There is so much to add about this movie. the best actor race is over. I think I don't see how Cillian Murphy doesn't win this thing. Hell, for all we know, the damn Oscar race could be over. Oppenheimer might win Best Picture too, if like nothing else seems to come out this year. Maybe Strays will get a nomination. But anyway, now, there's a lot to chat about with Oppenheimer. I don't want to hog the air in the room. I'd rather go to the man who looks like Oppenheimer right now, Mr. Dominic Guanzon. What say you about Oppenheimer? And that's the thing I desperately wanted you on this show, because of the fact that your understanding of history is you know more about history than I've forgotten. So
I'm all about having fun, but I love when artists take things seriously. I really am. And that was kind of a bit, but the thing with Nolan is that his style speaks to me as a toxic male. That's a joke. He speaks to me really in terms of history. Between Dunkirk and this it feels like, Steve, you kind of stole my point. You son of a bitch, you're good. But it feels like this is how like every biopic should be made, or that's like the standard you think it should reach, not literally how it should be made, but it is such an accomplishment to see something of this, a historical figure of this magnitude in a project this sweeping, the Manhattan Project, let alone the movie itself, having to jug this cast of characters, and this page in history. It is so satisfying to see it so competently done, because even with Nolan himself, who we can trust to at least deliver us at the very least something serviceable, it got a little weird with Tenet. It really did. And it's not just because with Tenet being the the kind of the ugly duckling of COVID, right? And unfortunately just kind of suffering from that whole thing. Tenet itself is kind of a mess. And as much as I did enjoy it and will enjoy it, if in a rewatch, I can't do it. It's honestly to a more extreme degree, it's kind of like the Star Wars prequels, where it's like, yeah, this is a complete mess, but I'll enjoy it. But no. With Oppenheimer, everything falls so damn well into place. And when a movie is over 3 hours, when a Nolan movie is over 3 hours long, and you are just flying by faster than a gamma ray particle shooting through the body of a human being, it feels right. And yeah, Cillian Murphy, absolutely I think I said this a couple shows ago or whatever, but like Cillian Murphy was meant to play Robert J. Oppenheimer, like in the same way that oh God, Inglourious Bastards, the villain, he was meant to play like Blofeld. Yeah, Christoph Waltz was supposed to play a James Bond villain, right? It's that level of perfection where it's like, look at him. It's kind of like, Bryan Cranston should be Lex Luthor, or something like that. Kind of the fan casting, but no, to an umpth degree, he absolutely nails the existential dread, that 1,000-yard stare that comes with the man who probably had a hand in helping the world, which, if it wasn't him, I'm not going to try and get into history too hard, but if it wasn't him, it was going to be someone.
Yeah.
If it wasn't America, it was probably going to be the Soviets. It wasn't going to be the Germans, because all the top physicists were Jewish, which the movie touches on. And that is I'm so glad they did, because that's one of my favorite idiosyncrasies of fascism, right? It's like, here is an ideology that demands nothing but power, but it's so stupid. It's so dumb. It doesn't know how to handle people properly and head on, that it shoots itself in the foot and destroys itself. It takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of other people out with it. But
I want to see Dom's list of favorite idiosyncrasies about fascism now.
Oh, you could say there's 14 points. No, but
we'll save that. We'll save that Google Drive for another day.
Yeah,
Google Drive.
Yeah, but yeah, the thing with the story of Oppenheimer is that he lived, he made his choices, and he made mistakes, and he is culpable to a damn good degree. But what this movie absolutely encapsulates so well is the weight of all of that on your shoulders. Mm-hmm. This is the man who made the thing that could end the world in like 2 hours. The thing that could end the world in a blink of an eye. Not even climate change goes that fast, right? And it is astounding to see it personified, brought to life. It is what this feeling is what every biopic wants to bring to the silver screen. It's what every book or video game creator wants to bring to the silver screen. It's what every anime producer wants to make in live action. It's that same feeling, and we have it here in Oppenheimer, and that is the big point I wanted to make in all of this, which is that it nails it. That feeling, what its goal, harder than any other movie I have seen probably in the past 5 years, and it's astounding.
Excellent stuff. Joe, before we have to hit our Zoom-sponsored intermission, general thoughts, impressions. Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer.
I want to retire from the show because I don't think I will ever have a weekend, just back-to-back weekends, even if I went the same weekend, as good as we had with these last 2 weeks. Because this was amazing to see be pulled off with 2 movies. Barbie, full-on entertainment, but just done in the best way possible. And now we have Oppenheimer, full-on drama, cinematic, like, masterpiece, all done in the best way possible. I don't know what else to hit on for general impressions that you guys haven't already said, other than, like, I don't even know what else to hit on, honestly. I'll just talk about I know where to start, actually. The fact that, like, when I walked out of this movie, and Dom, you kind of touched on it, but 3 hours went by like that. And I was like, I want to go see this again. Like, I don't say that about every 3-hour movie I go see. Like, even, I'm a big Marvel nut. I didn't want to go see Avengers Endgame right away after that. I was like, I can wait a few weeks, and I'll go back. I'll see it near the end of its, like, run in theaters. No, I want to go see Oppenheimer, like, this weekend. I want to go see Barbie again this weekend. But the fact I'm saying that about Oppenheimer, which is a 3-hour movie, it's a drama. Some of it's in black and white. It's all talking, and, like, it cuts between two different points in time. Half the movie's a fucking court proceeding, too. These are all things that, like, when I hear 3 hours and it has all that, and after coming off Tenet, I hate to keep dogging on Tenet, but you gotta understand, like, you know, how much of a low that was for me when it came to, like, Christopher Nolan. Because I also agree with you, Steve, that, like, I do like Dunkirk. I like it a lot as a theater experience, but other than that, it's an alright movie, like, you know, in terms of, like, you know, watching it at home and everything. It's really meant for the theater. It really is. It's a theatrical experience that you had to see in IMAX. And Oppenheimer is that, but I could gladly watch this at home again because of how well it is made. It is one of the best biopics. This should be like the standard, almost, like a template that should be created from this movie, honestly. Because the thing I loved about this movie, and every future biopic should take notes from this, and I know they won't, and we'll get our generic ones again, like Flamin' Hot and whatnot. Not that I'm saying Flamin' Hot had to have, like, the cast or, like, you know, the stuff that this movie had. Like, I didn't need Matt Damon to come in as, like, the Frito-Lay's, like, CEO and, like, you know, storm in there and shit.
Or just the main character, the main dude, just like an upshot of him just, like, looking like, I have made Cheetos. I have become Flamin', the destroyer.
Looking down at the conveyor of all the Cheetos going through.
It doesn't need to be, like, that cinematic quality, but, like, here was the thing. When we reviewed Flamin' Hot, we talked about how, like, it just went through the motions. And it went through the motions slowly. It was hitting points slowly. And then we talked about, wait a minute, you jumped, like, 10 years, not talking about a certain point in history where, like, you know, a lot of people got really screwed over, like Reaganomics and all this stuff. And, like, you lightly brushed on it. I made that little Frito, like, Cheetos, like, thing of the crumb on your fingers, and I was very proud of that moment. I don't have one for this review, unfortunately. what Oppenheimer does so good is it doesn't waste time. It doesn't waste time on the little things in this man's life. It knows why you're here. You're here to see this stretch of history in his time, and it just guns through it. I mean, but it hits everything. It uses its runtime effectively. This is a 3-hour movie that had to be a 3-hour movie. Not because like Nolan wanted to be like, oh, I'm making a 3-hour movie because I'm a big, film director and everything. No, he had to make this 3 hours. And when you watch this movie, you'll be like, okay, yeah, I see why this had to be, because there's other points of this movie that they're covering as well with oh my god, where are my notes? Oh my god.
Robert Downey Jr.
Yes, thank you.
With,
Strauss.
Yeah.
When they cover, god damn it, I had them right here in front of me.
This is some hard politics.
This is, yeah,
some genuine politics in these Senate committee hearings.
So when Louis Strauss comes into the film about like his point of view of Oppenheimer and how his world is shot in black and white and the meaning behind that and why they use that and everything and all the different interpretations you could take of that as well, like. There's like so many layers to this movie. Just that alone, that character alone, you can take up so many layers. You can look at it from an artistic point of view, like why is his in black and white? And you can come up with your own theories, talk about it amongst your friends like I did after the movie. Or you can literally just simply take it as just, wow, this is really interesting to see his point of view and what he did to Oppenheimer and what he was trying to do because of the fact that like how he was involved politically in the nuclear race and everything else. I mean, oh my God, you're covering all. Not only did you cover one man's life, you got like a good like mini documentary in here, a mini biopic of Louis Strauss's court trial. I know it's not really a court trial and everything, but it's just the easiest way to explain it. But his whole thing when he was under fire, when like the Soviets got their nuclear warheads and everything, it is like to do all of that is why I fell in love with Nolan in the first place. Because he did so much with The Dark Knight in terms of the Batman character and the Joker, and somehow managed to squeeze in Two-Face at the very end. It's the same reason why I love The Prestige and how like in depth that movie is and how great it is, and they fucking squeeze in David Bowie as oh my god, Nikolai Tesla, and it's just like, oh my god, like he squeezes in all these like great things and like in these blockbusters that are like very artistic and everything, and it's like I came out of this feeling on a high. Like that is why I loved coming to see Christopher Nolan movies, because I'm not gonna lie, ever since Interstellar, it's been kind of a downward spiral where it's like Interstellar's not a bad movie and neither is Dunkirk, but I kind of felt like this is not what I'm usually liking from him. This just feels a bit too different now. This is like, okay, this is you at the top of your game, man. I madly respect this director. It's one of the best directors I think that's working today. And in all honesty, I honestly do think, I know like everybody's like, oh, Shyamalan the next Spielberg. No. I think Nolan is the next Spielberg, but I think Nolan not only is he the next Spielberg, he'll be the next guy that they will say that's the next Nolan. Like that's how good of a director this guy is becoming. You don't make a rated R 3-hour movie and make $400 million at the box office like it ain't nothing, unless if you're this guy, dude. Like that's incredible.
It's true. We're butting up against the intermission right here, so we're gonna take a pause right here for the cause. We'll come on back. Lots more to get to with Oppenheimer. Don't go anywhere. It's Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube on this Wednesday evening. Back and better than ever. Back from our Zoom-sponsored intermission at Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. Thankfully, we don't have a news story tonight because I knew Oppenheimer was going to be the glutton of the show today, and well worth it because I think we're all in agreement. This film is going to earn its place on our favorite films of 2023 list in some capacity. What number it's going to be, you'll have to wait until January to find that out. But we're just breaking down Oppenheimer. I had to cut off Joe there due to the Zoom-sponsored intermission time, my friend. So pick up where you left off in your discussion of Oppenheimer.
I will just wrap it up with this: is that I was saying, like, you don't make a rated R film, and tell people go see it in IMAX, and you make $400 million at the box office. It's 3 hours long. I went to an IMAX show Friday night at 6:30 p.m. and it was sold out. The only seat that was available, or only seats that were available, were like the front row when we got in there, and like when I bought my tickets. I'm not kidding you. 20 minutes, not 20 minutes, literally 2 minutes before showtime, that row got bought up. People actually came and sat in the front row and everything. And it's just like, I was like, damn, I'm like, this has to be really something if people are really flocking over here. By the end of the show, by the end of the movie, I mean, like, just everybody getting up and just hearing them talk about the movie. It brought me back to, leaving the theater after seeing Barbie and now leaving the theater after seeing Oppenheimer. It's like, holy crap, dude. I haven't felt this way in so long about a movie. Like, yeah, I had my fun with No Way Home. I had my fun with, other films that we saw in 2022 as well that were like Avatar. That was what I was looking for. I was like, what was the big blockbuster of 2022? Like The Way of Water. But like, this just felt different cinematically. Like, leaving these two movies, I was like, this is just something like I just haven't felt since pre-pandemic, and it felt so good to feel again.
Very well said. I will continue on though with Oppenheimer. I think one of the things that struck me the most with this movie, beyond some amazing performances, one of Robert Downey Jr.'s best in years, and obviously Cillian Murphy. This is quite possibly, he's had an excellent career, but this is probably his best, which is very hard to complete. But Oppenheimer, though, I think the thing that struck me the most was the editing. Jennifer Lame is the editor on this movie, and she's edited a bunch of great movies. And she's worked with Nolan in the past too. She's edited, to name a few, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Manchester by the Sea, Hereditary, Tenet, as I mentioned earlier, Marriage Story, Frances Ha, Mistress America, Judas and the Black Messiah, and Midsommar. Jennifer Lame has quietly been low-key one of the best editors working today.
That is a great resume to have, honestly. Those are all movies that have very tense moments, and it's probably due to her editing.
Yeah, and the thing that I love about what she does with this, and it's tough to explain for those who haven't seen it. I say that because I was struggling trying to explain it to my, Catherine, actually, before she watched the movie. She has since seen it. But I'm like, there's an interesting thing it does with flashbacks, with like flash forwards in this movie, is that like there's clips of like Strauss trying to get approved for a spot in Eisenhower's cabinet, along with scenes of Oppenheimer seeking a security certificate, like a renewal appeal in this like kangaroo court setting. And you get clips of these. You get like clips of these moments that are interspliced in the current timeline. And then what you have is like, you kind of have like these parallel tracks. You kind of have like these parallel tracks that are going along the same course. And then finally, the present timeline catches up with the timeline of the fast forwards, and then it converges into the present. It's like a zipper like fashion in traffic when you're merging onto a highway. That's how it plays, and it's hard to like talk about. It's abstract, but it's really fluid, and it's like almost dumbfoundingly seamless when the movie does catch up in the final 40 minutes to Strauss trying to get approved, and then the certificate renewal process for Oppenheimer. It's quite brilliant, and Jennifer Lame deserves all the credit in the world for handling that the way she does, because it's out friggin' standing.
There were moments of this movie where, especially when you're getting towards the time where they're going to test the nuclear atom and everything and the bomb itself, but just I think this film does a really good job at actually feeling the weight that this science crew was going under, especially Oppenheimer himself. I think that's also enhanced by when the movie does cut to, his trial, when it's in that small room, that claustrophobic room, and he's constantly being pressed on and everything. It just makes you feel like, oh my God, like the weight of this, and like, we're in today's world. We're in the post-credit scene of Oppenheimer. We're living it and everything. You really feel the weight because like what this has done to today's world and everything. But just seeing it play out, this moment in history, this film does such a good job at making you feel that intensity of that race to beat the Nazis, to beat it before Germany completed their bomb. And then of course, like, hey, like, Hitler's dead. What are we gonna do? Oh, we're still making this thing. And it was just like, oh my God, like now there's the question of that. And some of the scientists don't believe that they should finish this thing. And there's so many other, like, things going on in terms of like just how much weight this movie has during like that whole, I would say, like second hour where they're built. Because I remember once it went off, I checked my watch. I'm like, so how much time is left in the movie? I was like, my God, there's only 50 minutes left. This movie flew by. This is incredible.
Yeah, there's been a ton of long movies this year. I'll throw it back to you in a second, Dom. There's been a ton of long movies this year. Spider-Man, Across the Spider-Verse, to name one of them. Beau is Afraid, 3 hours long.
Oh, yeah.
The Flash was long. There's been a lot of long movies to the point where I've argued like several times before. I've argued now that I'm like, if these movies are going to be this damn long, and I think directors are getting more and more creative control at the end of the day, if these movies are going to be this long, then they need to bring back intermissions. I would argue that Oppenheimer is the first long movie of the year where I really feel like there might be a couple slow parts, but I think that's like just by the very nature of it being 3 hours.
Yeah.
I wasn't bored for very long, if at all, with this movie. I think this movie makes tremendous use of 3 hours.
It's honestly, God, I love holding this thing. It's really a testament to just how, like, I can't think of a single scene that I could effectively cut.
No, you can't.
Like,
I can't either.
Save time. I'm like, I've only seen it once. But it's like, I can't. And maybe there are, and you can make some strategic decisions, but I would fight for it because every scene is a gift. And I'm just going to keep going down the list of like people to credit here. So for instance, the music, we don't talk about music enough on this damn show.
Dude.
And that's a crime for me particularly. But Ludwig Göransson, he's worked with Christopher Nolan before. This dude went from working on Marley and Me, and his first like official feature film credit as a composer is 30 minutes or less. That comedy, he went from that to Oppenheimer, and Oppenheimer's theme is there is beauty in this movie.
Yeah,
that's the crazy part, is that it doesn't shy away. There's a lot of anti-nuclear proliferation movies that correctly describe the horrors of nuclear war in the most consistently disgusting, putrid, and life-ending way possible. It's an anathema to life. And they should do that. Oppenheimer manages to not necessarily advocate for the bomb, which anyone critiquing that in that way, I think you've got it wrong. I just think you're wrong on that. This does not advocate for the bomb or does any history apologia for it. It's a study of a man, but it manages to inject beauty into this story so damn well, from the cinematography. Hoyt van Hoytema. Oh boy, I love saying that name, and I can't wait to hear it come on.
I love that name. I love his name.
I love hearing it said. But there is so much gorgeous everything in this movie that immediately get flipped on its head the moment the bomb drops. There is you could argue there's a history of the world before the bomb and after the bomb.
Yeah.
And that's the same way you can describe this movie. There is before the bomb and after the bomb. And what a damn obvious marker to put here. Because things change so quickly, which is exactly what history is. And how so much of this team, dude, freaking, like, the fact that you have Florence Pugh naked, and I am uncomfortable for like 90% of it, because how they effectively use her as like this wedge between, the marriage, this like uncomfortability with like, hey, this is not a stable person. This is not a good relationship. What is going on here? And that leads to its historic arc. And okay. Josh Hartnett. Are you familiar with that name?
Yes, the Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, he's the guy with the glasses, taller guy.
Yeah.
Kind of the alpha male looking dude compared to Oppenheimer.
Honestly,
it's funny you say Pearl Harbor. I always think 40 Days, 40 Nights.
I think Wicker Park. Have you guys seen Wicker Park?
Wicker. I haven't seen it, but I know of it.
That's a movie. It's not great and it's not horrible. It is a movie, and I think it should be watched. Shot on location, but for the most of it. But dude, the fact that it can take Josh Hartnett, who is not a bad actor, that sounds like a put down, but like turn him into this like this broiest of bro. Take Robert Downey Jr. and tear him down to be the most anti like Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Like, this is not the first time Robert Downey Jr. has argued with the Senate.
Yeah.
In movies, if you've seen Iron Man 2.
Louis Strauss is literally like the evil twin of Tony Stark.
He is like, I'm not gonna say for the memes, I was gonna say he's like the Justin Hammer of Oppenheimer, but he's really not. Yeah. He's got no swag. He's just conniving, and you don't know how he's played until the big reveal. And okay, a little bit of critique here. The way they reveal it's like, I'm Robert Downey Jr. and I am the bad guy in this film. And it's like, okay, that was a little like, you kind of laid that on a little too thick, but in the fact that we didn't have as much time to develop on there because we're so focused on the Manhattan Project, I'll more than allow it.
Can I ask you this? Did you know that about Louis Strauss before seeing the movie?
I did not. That is a kind of a subjective, like, how do you view history, right?
Okay.
It's like, is Oppenheimer the greatest evil? It would be if you're Native American, and I give you every right to do that. Mm-hmm. Are you a Japanese American? Yeah, FDR was kind of a piece of shit, like 100%. I'm not going to argue that with you. But with Strauss, I knew of the fights and the story there, and I was more or less like kind of like neutral on it, because it's like,
okay.
I will say I think I was a little negative beforehand. Because he effectively, as the movie shows, he effectively utilized the Second Red Scare, the McCarthy era, against a lot of people on the Manhattan Project, a lot of Jews who did a lot for their country, and were which they address in the movie, were screwed over by the end of it. But yeah, as a fan of history, I'm not gonna say historian because people deserve that title more, but as a fan of history. I was so supremely satisfied. I absolutely was. I'm kind of meandering here. Please take it from me.
No. I was gonna say, because like I was wondering if you knew this about Louis Strauss, or like the controversy, like that like came to light when like I don't remember this actual person's name, but when Rami Malek's character shows up in the proceeding.
I like sat up in my seat in glee when they mentioned the factoid that like, I would become the first cabinet rejection by the Senate since 1920, whatever. I'm not great with years, but like since this time, I'm like, I knew that. That's why I knew this story with him to begin with.
Like, so when I know that's like kind of like your one critique here and everything. I'll get into like the critique I have too. It's very minor.
I'm sure there's a bunch of other critiques, but they pale so much in comparison.
Dude, it's the same for me. For me though, that reveal, because like, the only part of this history I really know is the Los Alamos section of it.
Right.
That was always my favorite part.
That's the Avengers.
Yeah,
where
it really is. That's probably why I like it so much.
When Albert Einstein walks up to Oppenheimer and he's like, "I'd like to talk to you about the Manhattan Project," and then just credits. That's. Were we watching the same movie? No, sorry. Go ahead.
So the Los Alamos section, and then of course eventually leading to the dropping. That was always my favorite like thing to read in World War II, because I always thought that was an interesting point. Because even as like reading it in high school or middle school and everything, I always thought like, hey, this moment of history like kind of changed like warfare. Like, we haven't had a world war since, and it's probably because it would be fought with these things. I always thought that as a kid. And then like as I got older, I realized, oh yeah, that's literally why like we haven't had a world war yet, because we would fight with these things.
Yeah, I have always said like nukes suck, but also like if they weren't invented, all three of us would be conscripted into World War VII by now. So it's like What do you do there?
But like when that reveal happened, I mean, I had the Oppenheimer stare, dude. I mean, I was 1,000 yards like at the screen, like what? Like it caught me off guard, and just like where that whole story goes, it brought me back in. Maybe there, like, you know, I'm not saying like there was a time like that there was a low for me in this movie, but like I will say the one critique I had with this is I wasn't getting like the whole cutting back and forth at first, and it got a little lost if it wasn't even black and white. I was like, hold on a minute, I gotta really figure out like, you know, when these timelines are going on, and then, like once I got it, I was like, okay, all right, got it, all right. So like when he's at this campus, it's at this time. This time it's in the court proceeding. Like the movie opens with a lot of cutting back and forth between the characters. But I mean, once this movie gets going, you figure out your place, and I think once that twist happens, it really pulls you in on, you know, both these storylines now. I think that's
and the lighting is a little different too.
Yeah.
When Oppenheimer's in the room where he's getting just dragged down for hours, the lighting is a little different there too. But yes, excellent point. That use of black and white is probably one of the most effective uses in a little bit, because I was a little more familiar with the timeline. For someone who has no idea what the hell's going on, this is you're jerking in the seat from this roller coaster of a ride.
That's how I was. Like I thought it was amazing, and it was, and like you're saying, it's such a great use of black and white. Other, like, you know, Wes Anderson, Asteroid City, like, you know, just saying this is better use of black and white in this movie. But yeah, that's all I wanted to bring up. And then like that was my only critique with it, was the beginning of this movie, this first act. It took me a while to just kind of get where things were going, because it was moving fast. But once I got it, I mean, I was in this movie, man.
To add on to that, to add on to what you're saying, I kind of compared the first act to Tar, the Cate Blanchett movie, in so far that this is a world that you're really just dropped into. Like in the case of Tar, it was about like the world of conducting, and this like very like opaque world of like conducting and music and composing.
Less conducting, more East Coast, specifically New York, elitism.
East Coast elitism. That's probably a more opportune way to put it. But the reason I say it though is because there's a lot like within how does Tar open? Tar opens with that like 10-minute New Yorker festival thing.
No, it opens with the credits. Yeah, it opens with the credits.
With the credits, and then it goes into like the New Yorker festival where she's just rattling off her influences, and like she could be making up these names for all I know. So like so here's the thing, like some people are gonna find that alienating, to which I don't blame them at all. It's the same way in the beginning of Oppenheimer, it addresses a lot of like quantum physics and theory and everything. But like I don't know if I just become this kind of moviegoer or become this kind of like curious person in the last couple of years of my life, but like now I lean forward in scenes like that.
Yeah, no.
And I like try to listen more intently. I try to, you know what I mean, pick up on the nuances and such. And I also think, just one other point, I also think that it's funny at the same time fitting that Christopher Nolan, this movie's in IMAX and in a lot of different special formats, 75 millimeter, whatever it is, or 70 millimeter, whatever it is. It's in a ton of different formats across the country. I think it's funny that this is the movie that booted Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and a good portion of this movie for how it's shot is close-ups of facial expressions. Artfully rendered, have their place, but I think it's funny though that's how it wound up playing out.
That's actually a good point. I didn't even think about that. Like, really, the only real, like, you know, like cinematic blockbuster shot is when they test the nuke. Like, everything else, is really close.
Well, it's, we haven't mentioned it, and like it's funny because even when I was talking about this movie with a couple people and stuff, I didn't bring it up right away. We haven't brought it up yet. That Trinity test scene is fucking outstanding.
Dude, it is.
Yeah.
It is outstanding.
It's one of my favorite moments in a movie theater. Just like I love the fact that it was quiet, like silent. And just hearing everybody, like,
it wasn't quiet. It was dead silent.
Dead silent.
It was like no audio.
This was like
I have not. This is gonna sound a little lame, but I'm being genuine here. I have not felt that kind of anticipation, that kind of cinema moment of silence, the specific tool of silence. I have not felt it since The Last Jedi, where I'm not joking, where
goes through the ships,
the scene where they fly through the big Star Destroyer. I don't care, but you know the big thing, and that theater, that was a full theater. I watched it with like a barely full like not barely full, like there were maybe like 7 people there, including me. Star Wars was full, so that kind of had a little more prescience. But this one, that was all that this was a me moment where I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Other slight critique, a little cringe the first time he uses the term, because he's gonna say it. The quote, "I have become death, the destroyer of world." The fact that that is such like an overdone and such like a nerdy line to say in the context of like the nuclear proceedings, they have to use it here to give it a little bit more oomph. With Florence Pugh riding cowgirl on this dude, on Cillian Murphy, that's when that was a little weird. I'm all for artistic. That was a little much.
Nolan, congratulations on your first nude scene in a movie.
It's not true.
But I gotta say, brother, get somebody else to direct those scenes, because that was probably the weakest scene in this movie for me.
That was weird.
Nolan had to be just horny.
It was just awkward. Like, and the fact she's like, wait.
It was. Okay, hold on.
Read this. It's just like, what are you doing?
Okay, that was totally forced. 1000% forced. There is a functional use to we're getting nitpicky here. I don't care. But like we're getting like functionally where it's like everyone is kind of waiting for him to say it. Yeah. So the fact that they blew that low, pun unintended, they did that early, was fine. The scene where they're sitting naked in chairs looking at each other in like with like cigarettes out, that was a little funny, and then I could take it seriously.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, okay, this does work, but it was funny. They just seem like, damn, they really did do things differently in the 40s, didn't they?
I made a joke to myself, like, that's me when it's like, I gotta get going in 20 minutes.
This movie has the potential to be so toxic in the culture, but we are here to say no. Wolkenheimer says no to all of that. Are we gonna kind of finish out? Because if we are, I want to say one last historical little tidbit on this.
Please do.
Whatever platform I have, super quick. There's been a thing where it's like, oh, they should have shown more like, they should have shown, the victims of the bombing, the more Japanese perspective. They should have seen like more with like the Native Americans, Native Indians, and how they got screwed over with the radiation, which is a thing. And it's like, I get that, and your heart is actually in the right place, genuinely. But I think that would have, in terms of the mechanics of how this movie works and artistically at what they want to deliver, I think that would have detracted from the overall product, and it really forced it in, and really would have detracted from the message you would be trying to push in the first place, because it would feel too forced. Where it's like, okay, we're going to cut away to the natives here for like 10 minutes, and it's like, you're going to see them suffering, and it's like, we can do a separate movie about that.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. That could be a whole movie in itself. Like,
and it should be.
Yeah, and it really should be, because there's a lot to go into.
It's crazy.
The natives, and as well as what happened to Japan post Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I addressed it in my review as well. I devoted a whole paragraph to that too. I think like that it's a different movie. It's a really different movie. This movie's not called like The Atom Bomb or like the Trinity
It's called
test.
Oppenheimer. Yeah.
It's called Oppenheimer. Like, like I figured that there was going to be. I didn't even read much about like people's responses to this. I think
it was mostly just Twitter stuff.
I just
and like some articles.
Well, here's the thing. I just had a feel when I saw the. Keep in mind, I saw this movie the Friday it came out. So like, I just kind of had this inkling, like watching it, that I'm like, I bet you there's gonna be people that are like kind of offended or like annoyed by the fact that like Nolan doesn't reckon the atrocities that happened in like Hiroshima. So I wrote a little bit about just like my thoughts on that, and it's. And this movie though in general, I think like when it comes to like the aesthetics, the visuals, and the route it does take in order to tell the story that it's telling, which is the biographical life of Oppenheimer, it almost plays, and I use this comparison seldom, I've probably only used it maybe twice before, but it really doesn't happen much, and it's not completely true, but this movie almost plays like a really good novel. The way that it kind of like unfolds, and the way that it sort of tells this story in the manner in which it does, how I explained how Lame's editing really works, and the way that it tries to get inside the erupting mind of Oppenheimer through a lot of these close-ups. It almost has like sort of the grace of a novel in a way.
You saw this with captions on too, right?
I did, yeah.
I wish I
did.
saw this with captions
wow.
on, honestly.
Anytime I can see a movie with the open captions on, I absolutely do it. I love it. I would love for most movies to do it, even though it would probably piss a lot of people off.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I like it though. Usually my theater has like 1 or 2 showings a day opening weekend for new movies with captions on, and I try to go for those.
I love, look, dude, I watch by hearing. I mean, I read by hearing. Like, for some reason, when it comes to movies or whatever the saying is, when it comes to having,
you hear what you see.
Yeah,
you hear what you see, which is a principle in music as well.
Yeah,
in live performance.
Maybe that's why, because I also played music and everything. Maybe that's why I'm like addicted to it. I love watching stuff with captions on. And I would have loved to watch something like this because like there are scenes. It's not a critique against the movie. This is my brain, unfortunately. But like when there was a scene where someone's shouting at Cillian Murphy. And like they're purposely like turning up the brightness in the film and there's other sounds going on. I was like, my brain was going all over the place. I was like, oh my god, I'm like so stressed out, but I really wish I could read what's happening right now because I bet it's like really good dialogue.
the music is overwhelming in the not correct way, I think.
Oh, okay.
Like there are conversations happening here. I'm like, holy shit, can we maybe I'm not watching this in IMAX because I didn't watch it in IMAX.
I did, and
like,
it was even louder.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, this thing was so loud in my theater, I didn't have the pleasure of seeing it in IMAX.
At the wrong times. Loud at the wrong times.
But this thing was so loud at times, like for like the Trinity test, obviously the loudest scene. But like those scenes when like he's starting to almost have like a mental breakdown and like the music is going over the dialogue and it's intentional because it's showing like a feeling of overwhelmness. Man, there was a couple, I would say like 3 times during this movie, the friggin' speakers crackled in my theater. It was so loud. You almost thought like during that Trinity test, like after that like 40 seconds of silence, and you're like, huh, this is how it's going to do it. Then it goes off. Man, I thought the speakers were going to blow. I really did. It was that damn loud. I can't wait to see how that, it's not going to be half as good, but I can't wait to see how it plays on a TV.
Yeah, just for the curiosity of it, like just like this is gonna suck compared to it. It's honestly what we talked about.
If it's really a good
Dunkirk.
movie, that if it's really a good scene, it's gonna wake my cats up from a dead sleep.
We talked about this with Dunkirk and like the Stuka dive bomber themes.
Yeah,
where it's like yeah. And anyway, we probably have to close out, don't we?
We should. We're a little OT over here. I'm glad I didn't take a news topic today. Man, are we fortunate. This is one of the most anticipated movie weekends in many, 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 many years. And we've got 2 bangers on our hands that I think are going to spin the wheels and continue making a lot of money for the next couple of weeks. And it's great because I love seeing great movies do well. And I think beyond being a great movie, this is easily one of the best of the year. It's a movie I can't wait to revisit. It's a movie that I think is going to kind of give specific types of directors like auteurs and, like directors like Nolan who take time with their projects. I think this, for some directors, this rewrites the blueprint on biopics and raises the standard for a genre that we get so many of every year, and a lot of them wind up being either middle of the road or mediocre. I think this movie absolutely delivers on what it promises, and it does so in a way that juggles its ensemble extremely well. The aesthetics are just marvelous from top to bottom, whether it's the sound design, whether it's the cinematography, whether it is the music, and then you have just the editing. And again, I think this is some of the best editing of the year with Jennifer Lame, which she does with this movie. It's, I think, my second 4-star movie this year. It's 4 stars.
Yeah.
Go Dom then Joe to send us home.
Yeah. This movie did pretty much everything correctly. And more importantly, it did everything well. And I, as a fan of history and as a fan of movies, dare I say even cinema, this is tentpole. This is incredible. And I'm so happy for all the various sectors of my life that are reveling in this. Absolutely. For Barbie, you have something for the masses. For Oppenheimer, you have a masterpiece. And it's so feels so good. Because Joe, you absolutely said it best. we just stop making movies after this, or at least I should stop going to the movies after this, because this is a high that we will not reach for quite some time.
Every 15 years,
literally because of the strikes, but also because it's lightning immediately caught twice in a bottle, and I'm so happy for it. I can't wait for all the critiques, both historical and of the movie itself. I can't wait to engage in that discussion as well. See that in discussion. But for now, I'm living out this high. This is easily a 4 out of 4 star movie for me.
Joe, send us home.
The last time, God, hold on, let me turn off the stupid green.
Put it in front of your chest. Try your chest or something.
No, hold on. Choose virtual background. None. No, don't delete it.
I need to visit the Los Alamos site.
Yeah, that was the Los Alamos thing. That's what it is now. That's what it looks like if you were to go there. I haven't felt this way about a movie since this.
Hell yeah, brother.
And you're probably thinking, like, what do you mean by that? There was a moment in my life I wanted to make movies. I wanted to go to school for it and everything. That's how much I loved movies.
Wow.
But as I got older, it just made me realize, like, that dream is a lot to bank on, and I don't know if I should. Especially for those of you who do know me, and I'm not gonna get personal here, but, like, financially I wasn't in the best situation in terms of my parents and everything. I was like, I can't go bet it all and be like, well, guys, here I go, be the next Spielberg, and I come out, I'm just, nobody. But this made me want to just go. When I saw this, like, while I was in college and everything, I wanted to go and just pick up a camera and just shoot something, and just make a story, film it with people, write something down, whatever, just make a movie. Oppenheimer made me feel that way again. Yes, it's based on history, it's based on a novel as well, but just the way it was all done and how all these pieces came together. We didn't give credit to everybody that was involved. We really did. How can you? This is an epic, proportionate film of a lot of talent on screen, behind the screen. Hell, when they're not even on set and they're doing stuff in the editing bay, all that stuff. This is like a culmination of everything. It really is like the Los Alamos Project. It really is that, of just a bunch of people across Hollywood just coming together for this one moment. That I looked at him like, damn, I would love to make a movie one day. It could be a 20-minute short film, and it's because of movies like this, Oppenheimer. Nolan, thank you so much. And thank you so much for making movies as good as this and giving us a cinematic experience like this, and to everybody else involved as well. I know they're not going to see this YouTube video or anything, but just getting it out there, it just feels so good to say. I've been excited to talk about this movie just like I was when I saw Barbie. I was like, God, I cannot wait for Wednesday. It's movies like this that make me excited to go to the movies. I know I made the joke earlier, like, I'm going to retire from the show, but it's like, damn, if honestly we got movies like this every week, which we won't, but like to this quality or even close to this quality, I would love to like talk about this more and more. I hope Hollywood takes away the right lessons from both these films that we got these past 2 weekends. I know some say they won't, and maybe they won't, but hey, we'll have to see where it all goes, especially after the strike and everything. I think this is a great movie to come out even during the strike as well, because this kind of cements in, like, what movies should be and what studio head should actually be putting like attention to, rather than focusing on the next big franchise and letting something like this happen over the weekend. So we'll just wait and see how things play out. But for right now, we're talking about Oppenheimer, and for me, it is another 4-star movie this year. I've given it to 3 movies, and I'm telling you right now, is it gonna be on my top 5? Yes. Dude, this is probably number 1 for me. I can't see anything else with the release schedule that might take it. Maybe Killers of the Flower Moon, maybe that movie. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe some sleeper hit that will come out at the end of the year from A24. We'll just have to wait and see. But yes, right now, this is my favorite movie of the year. It is 4 stars.
Oppenheimer's for the boys. That's extremely toxic.
Just like that. What a great couple of reviews these last 2 weeks were. What a great time this past week. These 2 weeks have been at the movies with two stellar, wildly different, but extremely well done movies gracing the theater right now. If you haven't gotten out to see Barbie or Oppenheimer, let this be the message that you need to get to the theater to see one of or both of these movies. You don't have to go the double feature route, but I think you're almost doing yourself a disservice not seeing these movies in theaters, given the fact that I know a lot of people haven't been back to the theater since the pandemic, and a lot of people have gone back to the theaters to see one of these two movies. And I think it's a reminder of how much fun it is to go to the movies.
Exactly.
And that's the best part about these two movies, and they're two of the best films of the year, in my personal opinion. What a great show tonight, gentlemen. What a great two-part show.
Yeah.
Barbenheimer saga complete.
I'm
done and dusted.
so happy this delivered on all fronts in terms of like that whole meme and everything.
Done and dusted. Love it. Joe will be absent next week, unfortunately, but Dom and I will carry the torch, and we will review in a completely three wildly different movies. Next week, we'll be reviewing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. We are switching gears completely. I saw it yesterday. Afternoon. So we're going to touch on that next week and some news items as well. It'll just be Dom and I, the gruesome twosome, next week on Sleepless with Steve. But in the meantime, we're on the last stretch of summer, and things might start getting weird with the release schedule. This is a time that's even now between the writers and actors strike difficult for me to keep up with. Somebody who's entrenched with movies, it's tough for me to keep up with. I was just telling these guys, Gran Turismo is now delayed until the 25th of August. That was supposed to come out next week. So now it's getting really hairy now in terms of what is actually going to come out and what theaters are going to look like. Oppenheimer and Barbie might still be in theaters in October. Who knows? You know, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but we'll keep you posted. Dom and I are back next week to review TMNT Mutant Mayhem. In the meantime, go see Barbie, go see Oppenheimer, go see both. Support cinema, support movie going. It's an art worth preserving. For Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.